We're the only ones who remembered it.
Conference room is there.
Say it again, Michelle.
I can see that it says conference room one.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for it to get on.
Nice tree.
Thank you. Live tree. Ginger wants to get a fake one, but I said no. We always got to keep on getting a live.
Pretty large.
Yeah. Everybody, conference room one.
Hello, Brittany's a few minutes late, so we'll start when he gets here.
All right.
Nice tree, Tony.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, you got to put passion into it.
Right.
The lights just got to look just right. And, you know, you got to get the angel at a certain spot. And yeah, certain part of the wall, you know, you got to always hide the bad part in the back of the tree. So takes a
Yeah, it
while.
looks a little crooked.
Oh, ah.
Just kidding.
Yes.
Maybe you know. Continue. Yeah. You
Want to mute us just until Brittany's here?
We'll call this meeting of the City of Kingston Budget Finance Committee to order here at 6:37, Tuesday, November 29th, our budget wrap-up meeting. We do have one exciting new item on the agenda, which we will go straight to. Also, while we're getting this set up, note that I sent to everyone the 11 items that I have for consideration of tonight's budget wrap-up. I sent it to all the aldermen and everybody on that list. So you should have that. All right. So the item for consideration is similar to something we've done with two other departments, and that is to add the re-levies of outstanding water and sewer bills onto the city's 2023 tax bills. That is the way the committee report reads. Do we have any questions about it before we ask for motion? All right.
Want me to drop a number on it?
Drop a number on there.
Sure.
It's in the billions. Oh, sorry. So the report actually reads now, authorize the re-levy of outstanding water and sewer bills totaling $842,147.43 onto the city's 2023 tax bills. Do we have a motion to consider? Steve Shabbat, second by Michael Olivieri. Any discussion? Then all members of the Finance Committee who are present, if you are in favor, I'm hearing no discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 It's,
Aye.
Tony and Michelle, do I have your permission to write your,
Yes, you did. Thank you.
It's Ray
thanks.
Anthony, not Tony.
Just right, Anthony, not Tony.
What? Anyone opposed? Hearing no opposition. Measure passes unanimously. And now we will go on to the, oh, criminy, and I can't without my book and stuff. Okay. We'll have to make do. So the first item for consideration is Summer Smith in communications asked for $6,000 above her current request to cover a citywide mailing. She didn't have a specific mailing in mind, but she noted that her office this year had several such mailings, usually paid for from other departments. But she feels it would be a good idea to be prepared. Barbara Hill gave the example of mailing regarding the RTPA. So actually, I think I have this repeated. Yeah, so this is, I'm sorry, item number 8 actually repeats it. So this is in the budget book, page 42. It's Department 1650, line 463. That's where we're thinking about it. So the question there was, do we get prepared for such a potential event, or do we wait and see what happens, or do we ask the departments to pay for them when this comes up? Do we have any opinions on this matter? Tony Davis?
Thank you, Chair. I know Summer, we had a lengthy conversation with her. I would suggest that we put some money in there for her. Maybe not the 6,000, maybe like 3,000 or 4,000. Just in case of the mailer that she needs to get out right away. And then, as in the past, if something needs, another mailer needs to come, and then we can, then it has to come through whatever the specific department that had. So that at least Summer will have some money in there for her, for something that has to get out right away. And I don't want 6,000 and then it comes in and it's like, okay, well, whatever, that might come out of DPW. And now she has, that extra money sitting there. So I would suggest maybe like 3,000 or 4,000, and just that she has something to work with. And then, like I said, if another department has to come out of another department's budget line, or then we can take it from there. That's my suggestion.
All right, Steve Shabbat?
You have to refresh my memory. I remember the discussion, but I can't remember. We discussed where the money was going to come from.
We did not discuss where it would come from yet.
Okay. So we're being asked to put it in the budget.
That's
So
right.
that will increase the budget.
It will increase the budget, yeah.
Maybe I make a suggestion as we go through those, maybe just note them, because I think all of our suggestions were adding more money, right? So then kind of take a scroll poll with each one, if we wanted to come back and consider it, and figure out where this money is gonna come from. Right, because you may love this idea, but really, really love something else and don't want to move it up as much.
So take the straw poll now or at the end?
I don't know, whatever you want to work in. But in terms of this, I think it's a good idea because there were like 3 or 4 issues, well, maybe 3 issues that came up just that we wanted to send out a citywide mailer. And like to have the money there would be really nice to be able to do that.
Okay,
I'm okay with that.
Can I just make a quick comment too, just before you make any decisions? With the prorated taxes, the mayor's budget has to estimate prorated taxes because we don't know those figures at that time. The actual prorated taxes will be $24,421, which is less than $50,000 estimate. So what that means is if you want to keep the tax levy the same as the mayor's proposed budget, you would have to increase the appropriation fund balance by the difference.
Appropriation of fund balance.
Or, I mean, you know, the council could choose to adjust something else, but, in its simplest term or method, you can just increase the appropriation of fund balance.
And was it asking for, so it says the recommended budget is 2,000, my note says Summer's asking for 4,000, so we're only actually adding 2,000, what's recommended, is that the plan?
Well, no, because we were talking about the estimate, she estimated that, for the citywide mailing she did, that the cost was around $6,000. So the total she would need would actually be 6,000.
So that 2,000 becomes 6,000, not 8,000?
Right, right.
So we're adding, okay.
I think Michelle had her hand up. I don't know if you've seen it, Rain.
I didn't. Michelle?
Thank you, Chairman. I would say that I'm in favor of the 6,000 for that, for the mailings. I think that, you know, communicating to the public is important. And if we're going to put any money into it, I think we should just have it all come out of Summer's budget, just so that it's easier and just be less confusion. So it's just one way for the whole year.
Carl Frankel?
Yeah, hi, everybody. This may be an innocent question, but is there, I thought this is what contingency was for things like, oh, we have to do a mailing. So is there a logic to having it in the budget rather than come out of contingency?
Yes, you want
Yeah,
to
go
answer it? Yeah, because if it comes out of contingency, it has to go through council and then have to go through a communication committee and council this way, that if there is something that really needs to get, we want it out. I think it was 2 years ago that we wanted a snow emergency out quicker than the government could move to go through that whole process. So this would be, she would be able to allot that money straight to do it.
Got it. Thank you.
Barbara Hill?
Yeah, I think it's important for her to have it or for it to be there, the 6,000, because there's so much community engagement we're doing on all kinds of things, and the timing of that, you know, I don't know if somebody or we said this, but yeah, it's tight timelines sometimes, and I think it's really important.
Okay, so the seems like we've got two ideas on the table. Seems like everybody's in favor in general of adding some money. We got two ideas. One is to add $4,000 to bring it up to 6,000, or add something less than that. Tony, you were advocating for adding something less than the 4,000. Are you okay if we do 4,000?
Yes, and I'm in agreement with John in regard to, or whoever mentioned it, I think it might be John or Andrea, and Ren, if you could just put running a total, so then at the end, we can see how much are we increasing to this budget? Or what are we decreasing before we go? I couldn't really hear if you guys were saying we're going to vote for each one right now, or we're going to wait at the end and just have a running total and say, okay, yes, we can do this, or we have to take some more away from a certain item that somebody wanted to increase.
Well, the idea is that, I mean, I think as long as the amounts we're talking about are somewhat small, or even if they're larger, we can increase the appropriation from fund balance to cover them for this budget. But if we were going to add, say, 3 more members to some department, that would be something, a major encumbrance on future budgets. That'd be a different discussion, right?
All right, I'm just going to keep a running total for myself. That's all. So we haven't made a decision. It's either +6 or +4.
Well, it's +4 to get to 6. Because right now she's got $2,000 in that line for postage and so forth.
Am I looking at the wrong line item? I have contracted services that she has 2,000. Postage, I only see $50.
3 postage and so forth.
463.
Isn't that it?
No, 472.
472 is contracted services. Postage is only $50, but I'm not.
I thought it was, I think it's 472, because then that could help with the design, the printing, all of that. It covers everything. not just the actual shipping out.
Okay,
That was correct. right?
Yeah, it could go either way. You could split it between contracted services and postage, but if you don't know what the breakdown is, you're probably better off just putting it into contracted services. It's fine.
Okay, thank you.
And Tony, if it helps, I mean, I'm keeping running totals on the spreadsheet, so I can give you updated figures at the end.
Alrighty, thank you. So right now, we're discussing moving that postal or contracted services from and recommended 2,002 and right now to 4,000 or maybe 6,000.
well, okay, so item number 2, though, Summer wanted to increase contracted services from 2,000 to 4,000. 4,000 was her original request, and the reason was to cover increases in certain things she's had to purchase, particularly Spanish translation services. So,
Right, then that might have been my mistake. I might have only marked the one thing. If you wanted to.
yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have my book with me, so.
I want to apologize, but I probably forgot about that.
Yeah, that's what I had. I had when, after we had a discussion with Summer, she said she was willing to be, she was, I know she said 2,000. She said something that I had here that she said she would be able to ask for, she'd be able to go get through with one additional 1,000 in that line item. Unless that's what I had written down.
Okay, well then, I think what we would be talking about would be then, I'm sorry that I got these two things confused myself. We're actually talking about adding more than 4,000 then to the postage line. That would be 6,000, or if we put that into contracted services. And then if we increase the contracted services as she requested to cover things like Spanish translation services, we're actually talking about increasing the contracted services line to, let's see, $10,000.
Do we have a way of knowing how much she spent this year or how much the city spent this year on the translations? Is there?
She did not give us a specific number. She just said that that number is low.
Isn't there like, shouldn't be a citywide service already that we utilize for all the departments
Well,
for translation?
you mean like, so she uses it online when they do Zoom meetings? I think that's where the cost she's talking about. I mean, we try to hire Spanish speaking individuals in some of the departments. But just clerk's department that we do that?
Clerk's department has a Spanish speaking
Is that the only one that yeah,
specifically, yes.
specifically? But I think this was more for at the meetings, this translation available.
Okay.
The council's actually never utilized any of that.
On a year-to-date basis, we've spent $1 in postage. The contracted service line, we've spent nearly $3,000, of which roughly a little under $600 is for interpretation.
Okay.
The balance appears to be related to mailers, signage, things like that. Snow procedure flyer, another ETPA flyer or mailer.
So the 600 is for the Spanish translation. I mean, even if we plan on doing more, it's with that service, the contracted service is being 2,000. I don't know how many more meetings will we have that we could use the 4,000 more that she requested.
So if we put that line at $8,000, that would cover at least at this, well, 9,000 is what it is, because we've spent $3,000 to this point, and we're adding 6,000 for a mailer. That would bring that total up to $9,000.
Rennie, I have a question maybe John can answer.
Sure.
I believe this came up last year in the budget. We were discussing language access and we had to have everything translated into Spanish that the city offered in information to the community. Did that happen at all or?
You mean like everything on our website and?
Yeah, at anything, any documents, everything had to be then offered in Spanish. It had come up last year during the budget.
Yeah, I remember, and we were talking about signs too, right? And like, I think it was the snow emergency stuff too. That we were talking about, making sure.
Yeah, it's about like a state law that everything
Okay.
is offered in bilingual.
I don't know if we're doing that then.
Okay, I just wondered if that had happened or if there was a line for that.
Well, we could also put down well, never mind. I was gonna say we could put down a line as a marker and then change it before the next budget meeting, but I mean, change it before the common council meeting and we vote on this.
I mean, does anybody have questions for summer? Is that? Or just need to make decisions?
I mean, to me, it's a justifiable expense by all means, like you said. How many times have we said we need to send out mass, mailers to everyone, and especially getting
Well, for
multiple
the,
languages and.
I guess I'm
services.
just confused with what the state, like the the much larger request for translations is, if that is just for meetings, because I can't imagine that it's gonna be that many more, but if it's also changing some of what we already have, that might be a big task. I don't know, and it is important to have Spanish.
Well, that's another thing too, where we can just wait and see. Tony Davis?
Thank you. We should have, if we had to do translation, John, again, line item 472, you said or how much it was spent in that line item right now?
Just short of, it looks like $600.
$600. Now, again, a lot of stuff we should already have translated if we started implementing this last year. So I don't know how many documents out there that we would have to translate. I mean, we have to send out more the snow removal. That should already have been translated into what summer needs. Is this would be about getting the flyers made up. That it should be already on a Word or document somewhere. And so if we already spent like $300, $400 on that line item, and I can't see how we, justification right now of increasing that to $4,000 contracted service.
This translation service that I'm seeing here that's been spent appears to be related to meetings, not necessarily documents.
Yeah, that's what I took Summer to mean, is she's talking about live translation. So that's something that we could certainly improve on, because I have not been to many meetings where there was simultaneous Spanish translation going on.
Okay, all right.
So can we call her and just ask to clarify? Or?
I mean, we could put the number at total number 9,000. That would give a $1,000 bump to the current contracted services. If we do increase a large amount, the amount of live translation that we're doing, that's something that we theoretically would have some warning about. And so we could, find some money in contingency or somewhere else for that. So if everyone is in agreement with that, then we're talking about putting that contracted services line 472 at $9,000, which would include $6,000 for a mailer on some subject to be determined, as well as another $1,000 in case the amount of live translation increases in the next year. Are we okay with that? Yes, okay.
That's an increase of 7.
Yes.
Okay.
472. Right.
We can't hear you.
Going to item number 3.
All right.
This is a general request from, that came up when we were talking with Emily Flynn regarding questions about marketing and graphic design. It was partly in the discussion of the traffic safety campaign, and there was some discussion about whether it might be cheaper to hire a city government marketer, graphic designer who would do all of the city's work for banners, posters, flyers, notices, and would be able to do work across all departments. So we do not have a specific figure for what this would cost. And I'm not sure how folks feel about trying to find that figure and think about it in this budget. Tony David, then Steve.
And again, without any solid figures, and again, if this is going to be citywide, what departments it's going to be in, and then if this is going to be for citywide, then that has to would have to come out of every department's budget as well. And if that's nailing, it can't be, it's coming out of one person's budget. And that's a lot of information that we're not going to get by the time we have to do this budget. Does it sound good that in-house we would have to do the cost analysis here? How much we paying now to have this stuff done, by someone versus doing it in-house? I mean, it's not just to say, oh yeah, you're going to do it. That means that's a full-time position, at least with the pay plus the benefits. We'd have to do a cost analysis to see which outweighs what. Is it just easier, better to continue with outsourcing it or having it done in-house? And if we're going to have the person in-house, then we have to sit down to figure out how that's going to be divvied up with all these departments, because this is not just going to be for one department.
Oh, good. So Mike found for the city of Albany, they have a graphic designer, and the salary is between $40,000 and $50,000 starting salary. Then that would also, of course, be increased by various insurances and benefits and so forth. Steve and then Barbara, you have to say, trumps anything anybody else says?
I wouldn't say that. I just wanted to note for everyone, Article 5 of the Charter, Section 5-1C, would be relevant to any discussion we have about creating a new position and allocating duties and authorities to a new position like the one we just discussed, or maybe one that will be discussed later.
Mm-hmm.
It has some specific requirements. It requires more than just, I think, the communication received. We don't have to go into it now, but later, if we end up going into more detailed discussion, it requires a local law to reorganize, add position, and reallocate functions.
Okay. All right, so then that sounds like the sort of thing we would think about for next year's budget.
Yeah. Actually, that's what I was going to say. My recollection was just a general discussion. I know I voiced my opinion. I'd really be in favor of having somebody in-house doing something like this. Give us another position, another more employees. However, I think we're a little premature to even discuss it. Such little information here.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say down the road, I really can't imagine doing this at this particular time,
Okay.
but I'm definitely in favor of it.
Agreed.
I was basically just gonna say what Steve said. I just think we don't have enough information, 40, 50,000 doesn't even seem like a graphic designer would, I guess I just don't know what graphic
It
designers.
says Senate, New York State. Graphic designer.
Yeah, I just think it needs to be all the communication and discussion. That should be more than just this.
Again, and as Barbara stated, this is something that we would have to look at in next year's budget. This is something that the mayor would have to be on board and have discussions. You got to talk to all the various unions, et cetera, et cetera. You got to speak to, see, what's his name, to figure out what the job description is going to be. This is something we need to discuss at a later date.
I mean, it can be done throughout the year by doing a local law or whatever, but so it doesn't have to wait for the next budget season if anybody wants to bring it forward. Just can't do this quick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind doing a little homework on it. Move it along.
Okay, we seem agreed on that then. Give me 1 second here.
You did get one, right? Last class? I got it.
The page. Yeah, but I don't remember if it's in here, in this list. Well, why don't we go ahead and talk about that? So Andrea had sent in a request to reintroduce the page for the Common Council meetings. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I forgot to mention at the clerk's meeting, it was taken out a couple years ago because obviously we were virtual and didn't need a page. But now, especially we're back and have all the technology, I would like to have that position back. It is helpful for council members and it's $500 a year.
Okay. Generally, what would the duties be?
The person, like it was Bill Kerry's son for all those years before it was shut down. And then when I took over this position, I had Caroline Regan, which people probably don't remember because it was only like 3 meetings before we shut down. So they would be at the council meetings to help the clerk or to help me. And now, especially with the Zoom, you know, Jasmina volunteered a couple times and like just doing the mute buttons is helpful so that I'm not running around or trying to
I
get
got
my
nowhere to
seat.
pour my water now.
Or, yeah, the water.
Come on.
You know, just basic like cleanup and fetching stuff.
How much was this for?
The council page that.
Yes, what was the cost?
500 a year.
I have no problem with that. And that again, the page has always been there. I know with virtual, it would eliminate it, but with people, you know, council members shouldn't have to get up to get the pad that people sign in, or, you know, going to get water, especially when we're having a live meeting, to get up to try to go and get water, or you as a president getting up to turn down the remote or something like that. And I had no problem with it.
Yeah, and I just think if we don't install it, it will really never come back.
Yeah.
And it's $500.
And I think it's a good incentive for a young person who is aspiring to be a government worker.
Yeah, and really, I meant to bring it back and let Steve know and Elisa know that I wanted it. And Elisa and I talked about it like a week ago because I forgot again to bring it up. We just both forgot to put it in just because it hasn't been on our radar. But it's really helpful just to do those small tasks.
Yeah, I'd like to see it happen.
All right, is everybody okay with that?
500 plus Social Security is 530 total.
Oh, no, wait a minute, wait.
38.
All right, so I've added that onto the list. What I'd like to do is go down to item number 6, because that's one that was a specific request from Mandy, who's the head of the Community Development Department. And she's asking for an increase in pay of $4,624. You'll see.
We may need to go into executive session for this because it's about an employee's salary. So I just wanted to throw that out before you get too far. Barbara gets just alert us when we need to, or should we just automatically go?
I mean, executive session is not mandatory, but it's generally used when we're talking about an individual employees for individual compensation.
Let's see. Then let's put that to the end. She did give us some information in public, but it's probably best just to put that at the end. Because if there's something else we need to go into executive session for, we can do that all at the same time. You're okay with that? Okay. So the next item would be the similar thing. of running into the issue of having to reorganize the department, create a position. The next two things I think are closely related. I know that a lot of people that I talk to, my constituents, have a lot of trouble getting information from the city and navigating the city's website. Things, for example, when somebody wants to make a claim against the city, this can be a kind of Byzantine process, difficult to figure out. And so if we had a live person on a daily basis that people could call, number
Oh,
one.
sorry, Randy Barber's holding.
Yeah.
I don't want to cut him off midstream, I was just indicating.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't sure if that was
No,
any.
no.
Sorry, Randy.
And then the other thing is, I've gotten at least 3 calls in the last 6 months from people saying, somebody at City Hall told me you're my alderman, and they weren't from Ward 3. So, I think there's a need for better information flow in the city, but as Barbara was pointing out, since this would be, reorienting the clerk's office, we probably have to put that off into the distance. And then the other thing is consider money for renovating the city's website, but we don't have any figures on that. But this is probably the biggest complaint that I get. So
I know it's not part of my duties, but nodding at the website, I just wanted to note that maybe one of the reasons why people are commenting about not getting advice on the claims against the city is that we actually shouldn't be providing that.
I didn't mean to suggest they should get advice on it. What I was saying is they don't understand how to get to it.
Right.
And because our website is so Byzantine, there's simple things like people want to know where something in the planning department is. Something's coming out of the planning, and they don't know how to find it on the website. Right. So, and then also just, having a real person that, people can call and ask information of. That's the basic idea. So
I'll just add one thing and then sort of bow out, and just that the council is not a city department in the same way. So if you were talking about, I didn't know if that item related to more constituent services or if it was truly a clerk's office issue.
I saw it as being just a live person would be able to provide information. So we can hold off on that one and discuss that further, but there's also this issue then of the city's website. How do other people feel about that particular issue? Again, if we don't have a particular figure, this might be something to look into, but I don't know, what do people think?
I agree. Sorry. Yeah, it's helpful.
Wasn't there talks a while, I think it was my first year, wasn't there talks that we were getting grant money for this? Am I imagining things?
There was a brief period where the administration was in discussion, from what I understand, with an individual who said that he could deliver a new website for between $40,000 and $50,000, but we never got a proposal for that. So, that would be the issue.
That would be just so awesome.
Tony Davis.
So our website, it can be cumbersome, but that again is something that we can look to putting out a bid out there, right? To anybody who wants to take this on for a certain amount of money and to revamp the city's website. And that's not, I think that's something that we could do. We don't know what exact figure would be that we could send out, right, John? If that's the way we could do it, right? Just bid it out and see what the lowest bid comes back in as, or the best bid.
Right, the administration could, however, typically you would want to have funding allocated prior to putting a bid out. You'd want some type of estimate as to what that would cost, because then there's, potentially by the time the city would be in a position to make an award on a bid, it's already expired. So, and you want to do the bid in good faith. Part of that is having funding approved for it. So I think perhaps Kyle could provide estimates. I just don't know whether or not that'd be time for the budget.
And my follow-up question is, so we have someone that comes in and redesigns our website to exactly how we want it. Do we have anyone in-house that is able to keep up with that? I.e. posting our meetings and our calendars and
People
updates.
do that now on this website, so it'd be this, they would have to get probably some training to do that,
Mhm.
but, I mean, so we do have that in-house.
Yeah, my concern is if we get with this like super fancy, high-end website that maybe we don't have the in-house staff that can keep up with that. Like, I don't know if it's just gonna be like a WordPress site, or if it's gonna be something a little more intricate where you actually need coding in order to insert that after the initial development.
Maybe these people would need to be trained
Well,
for
yeah,
a new website, for a newer technology than we have,
Yeah.
which is.
I don't think it's that, once the website is set up, adding stuff should not be that difficult.
yeah, hopefully.
Shouldn't be.
Well, for you and me, yeah. Gray hair folks.
And I think, and especially since anything that we're adding today would be coming from the fund balance. I mean, maybe this is a conversation that we could bring forward again in January, because it would be coming from the same thing, but we could iron out a lot of this information instead of just picking a random number today, because I would have no idea.
Well, I can ask Kyle, I can send him a note tomorrow and see if he could do some snooping,
Oh.
figuring. But yeah, okay, are people okay with that, in agreement, does anybody love the website as it is? I take the stunned silence for a, yes, let's continue thinking about fixing it, okay. All right, the next item then is, we were talking with Chief Tinty. This is section 3120, line 103, overtime. We were talking about the issue of traffic enforcement, and he was saying that we could increase traffic enforcement if we increased that overtime budget. Because that's basically where the time for them comes in for doing that work. Because generally, their workaday time is taken up with, more other types of activities, I'll put it that way. So this was a question of whether we wanted to, in a sense, invest in more traffic enforcement. So let's think about the general question first, and then we can think about potential costs or try to get Chief Tenty to let us know very soon what that might be, what he's thinking of. So what do people generally think? Michael Olivieri?
I would say, this would be a smart investment, especially with where we're going, where, we're looking to potentially lower the speed limit throughout Kingston. You have people who are raising the questions and concerns about, pedestrian and bicycle safety, accidents. I think every single one of us has received some sort of complaint about, speeding. I just got another one today where, they specifically named the car's license plate and everything and saying this person is a nuisance on this road. So I think if, we have that increase in, the traffic enforcement, that would alleviate some of those concerns that I'm sure we've all been getting. And like I said, the bigger ones that are coming down the road potentially with a lower speed limit. And as I said before, the, pedestrian and bicycle safety.
I got what you do with that metaphor coming down the road. Very good. Barbara?
Yeah, I agree with Michael. Even if we don't do something about, lowering the speed limit, still it's, enforcement's a problem. And I think that's the 3 E's. I can never remember what all of them are, but enforcement's the third one. And what is it? Education's one.
Engineering.
Engineering, yes, of course.
Uh-oh.
Really?
Well, we got that she was in.
Yeah, so let's just say I'm for it.
Okay. Thanks, Barbara. Steve Shabbat?
Yeah, it seems like we frequently discuss legislation only to get towards the end of the conversation and think, how are we going to enforce this? Not that we really stall legislation because of lack of enforcement, but, kind of take some of the thrill out of passing something when it's not going to be enforced. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea, you know, to have the freedom to actually have things
Alright.
enforced that we legislate.
Yes, okay, so what I'll do is I'll ask Chief Tinty if he has a number in mind, and then I can let everybody know as soon as I find out, and then we'll,
The only issue that I see is you want to pass a committee report that actually adopts and funding the,
yeah, if you could call
total
him.
expenditures.
Hey Chief, how are you? It's Andrea. I am sitting in a finance meeting. May I put you on speaker, please? Alrighty. Ladies and gentlemen, Chief Tinty.
Chief,
Good afternoon, everyone.
hello.
Where are you?
I'm in the house.
Well, if it's afternoon where you are, it's a house that's in California.
What's that?
Never mind. We are,
Come on over. I'll put coffee on if that's what you want.
we are in the budget wrap-up meeting, and we are discussing the former discussion that we had with you about adding some overtime money in order to increase the amount of traffic enforcement.
Yes.
So I know we're calling you kind of cold cock here, but do you have a sense of what kind of money we might be talking about for increasing that overtime budget so we can put it into a revised budget tonight?
I gotta say, if I look at the number of hours that we were trying to do last time, I think the figure we came up with was 25,000. And
Okay,
that should give us a pretty good, bang for the buck, so to speak, as far as the overtime deployment. Again, I would be using it in locations that have been already demonstrated to be, accident prone and where the complaints are coming from. But yeah, absolutely, 25,000, I think is a good start.
okay, good. Any other questions for Chief Tinty?
I don't know if you guys, did you guys hear it? On Zoom? Okay.
Michelle Hirsch has a question, comment?
Unmute, Michelle.
So what would that $25,000 translate to as far as enforcement time and times a day and hours a week?
Did you hear that?
So I'm gonna have to have somebody at the table repeat. I heard her speaking, but I couldn't make out what she said.
What would that 25,000 translate to? Basically how many hours per week would it go towards enforcement?
We would look to do probably somewhere between 15 and 25 hours.
15 to 25 hours.
Yeah, yep.
Thank you.
All right, any
What
other
would
questions?
that, and that would be during, but one other question, that would be just during the day, and or be different times of night, different times of the day?
Would that be throughout the day?
We're trying to do it all sorts of, really the highest traffic flow in the city of Kingston is usually early, daytime to early afternoon, when people are coming and going type of thing. But if we do get complaints on certain intersections, we can put them out whatever time, midnight, afternoon shift, whatever works.
All right, thank you, Chief.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, anything else on any other issues for Chief Tinty? All right, thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Tell us how the Pacific looks. All right, good. So we're talking now $25,000 added in overtime for traffic enforcement. Tony Davis?
So, so we were looking about now at $400,000. I'm just asking the council that's here, and do we all get a lot of calls about speeding in our wards? And
Yeah.
does this justify? I mean, I know some wards get more than others, and but it is a good investment, but it is a big investment on our budget. And so, you're talking now overtime 400,000, and so I don't get that many calls, and not to say that I'm speeding, but I do get some calls in certain spots, like Foxhole Avenue and Foxhole Avenue especially. So that's why I was just throwing out that question.
I think.
I don't get-
I'm sorry, go ahead, Carl.
I don't get many complaints, I have to say. So I heard everybody else saying they do, but I have not.
Well, the other thing to consider is if and when we decrease the speed limit to 25, that's why we would definitely want some extra enforcement. Certainly with, extra police presence, with warnings and education. And generally, that's the way that the chief approaches these things, warning and education first. But as he was saying in the meeting that we had, they keep track of every warning they give. So if somebody's gotten 3, 4 warnings, they're gonna get a ticket, right? So they work with people. So the person that Mike was talking about, for example, if that person gets caught by KPD once or twice, they're gonna get a warning. After that, they're gonna start seeing tickets. Steve Shabbat, then
Yeah.
you.
I'm gonna raise the average up here a little bit, because I get frequent calls about speeders, especially summertime. I have 2 softball fields in my ward, and guys speed to and from the games, down Bukkake, Delaware Avenue, down the hill. I get frequent complaints about that, and even over by Block Park. Actually, that was one of the things last night why I put in for a stop sign. I know there's a lot of people in a hurry to get places. So, you guys may not get any, but I get plenty of them.
Yeah, I hear a lot, and not even just speeding, but rolling through stop signs.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
paying attention to pedestrians and crosswalks, all kinds of safety issues, and a lot of it could be done through warning. I know I've talked about traffic safety with department heads for years. I know DBW gets a ton of calls about speeding. I know KPD gets a ton of calls about, well, not just speeding, but any of those things, so any traffic safety things. So.
We've also had some issues with city workers getting at least bumped by moving cars. So, this is another instance where it'd be good to have a little extra police presence. Barbara Hill?
Yeah, I think I get a lot of complaints about speeding, and I think we have been given advisement that stop signs aren't really something that really traffic calms in a lot of instances. So I think that was recommended by John Schulteis, let's put one up, on a certain, like Main Street, to get more of a handle of what's happening, see if that helps calm things down. But there's several streets in my ward that I get constant complaints about. So yeah, I'm in favor as however many we can tolerate getting. If we do reduce the speed limit, and even if we don't, I think there are different key entrances to the city where, I've seen you can have different kinds of messages on them either, but I think it's important. I think Kingston needs to slow down.
Yeah, good. Okay, so I get this, Michelle Hirsch?
I'm just, I wanted just clarification. We're talking 25,000 or 400,000? Tony mentioned 400,000.
He's talking
That line item would go up to 400.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry.
From what's recommended right now, and Michelle, sorry, I didn't.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just add it up, just to give you an idea, based on the average hourly rate for overtime, you're adding approximately 400 hours of overtime for the year. So, anything above that for traffic enforcement would come out of the existing overtime budget for KPD.
Okay.
And one more thing to consider, once we actually start issuing tickets, that's going to be additional revenue.
I didn't want to say that.
All right. Okay, so I hear everybody saying they're okay with that then? Increase by $25,000 overtime pay, okay. The next item I had was this issue of adding some money to replace the chairs in council chambers for the 9 aldermanic desks. I did not get an estimate yet for that. Did you see anything?
You're not replacing my chair, so I'm not getting an estimate.
Well, no, I thought.
My chair's fine, I don't
need
need, I didn't know that was on my to-do list.
No, we had asked Dan, but we had asked Phyllis to do it during the meeting.
Elise is here.
Ah, there she is.
Yeah, so hi, I did speak to Brian Waltman, and because the chairs have to match up with those desks, they're very old and they were made specifically for our chambers. He said the starting cost would be around $1,200 per chair.
Why do they have to match?
Well, you'd want to sit with your legs under your desk and have the ability to turn your chair so that you can see the public when they are speaking to you. So the chairs that are there were custom made. And he said to replace them would be very, very expensive.
I think compatible is a better word than matching. I thought it would have to match.
Okay, Tony Davis?
Can't we look into seeing if we can find a wooden person out there to refurbish these? It seems like most of the problems is just really with the wheels on the bottom and to get them reinforced. And at this time, I'm not in favor of ordering $1,200 chairs and for us to sit in, once a month. I mean, I know other people do use them, but if we can find it's wood furnishing or furnishing in places around here, and that could repair these chairs for less than that.
I hear what you're saying. My problem is that the two are not compatible because the chairs are so low that if you have a computer on your desk, you're sitting in a really bad ergonomic situation.
But I think, again, if we're getting refurbished, they can look at that to see if that's just the spring that has gone on it and replace that.
Okay, Barbara Hill?
I really don't know what to say about those chairs, but they're extremely uncomfortable, even if you try to work on it yourself. It would be great to get an estimate of one of them to refurb it, to see Tony's idea. But it just seems, they're not ergonomic. They need padding. I was already thinking maybe there's a way I can bring something in to make it more comfortable myself, but I didn't want to be I wanted there to be consistency. I didn't want to look out of place, but I would look forward to either getting an estimate or trying to find money for them. We've done a lot of renovation in the building, and I know we only sit there a couple hours a month, so it's sort of.
They do get a lot of use though. The chairs get a lot of use. They're not used just by us. They're constantly being moved around for all kinds of other reasons.
Okay. Makes sense, but I would be for it, getting new ones, but if not, a serious look at refurbishing, like.
Steve Shabbat and Carl Frankel?
Okay, actually, a couple of points. You just said those chairs used. Can't we find some cheaper folding chairs for people to use rather than moving those things around? And if that's one of the reasons why we need new chairs.
Or chairs like this, you don't even have,
I mean, there's comfortable folding chairs out there. As far as I'm concerned, I spend way more time sitting in more uncomfortable chairs than that. I can live with that. This is a lot of money. I'd rather, like Tony said, see if we can find somebody to fix the wheels or fix the height adjustment. It just seems like a lot of money, for chairs for us to sit in a couple hours a month.
Yeah, for uncomfortable chairs. Carl Frankel.
Yeah, thank you. I'm with Steve on this one. I bridle at the notion of paying $1,200 for chairs for our comfort. It just seems like that's the sort of thing constituents would rightly see as an extravagance because, in fact, it strikes me as one. There are probably more efficient ways to create comfortable butts for us, like buy 9 cushions that will raise the level of it and be more comfortable. So I think it behooves us to search for more economical and sensible ways to address this issue.
All right, Michelle Hirsch.
Yes, as a very short person, I'd be happy to see if we can fix the lever to bring the chair up or down. But other than that, I am not in favor of spending money on the chairs any more than that. I don't think they should be replaced. They're just we're not really in them that often. It's more ceremonial. And I agree, with Steve, and I was thinking the same thing, that maybe find another cheaper solution for chairs, for other meetings that are held in the chambers.
All right, thank you, Michelle. I'm sorry I interrupted you. I thought you were done. Elissa, I wonder, would you be the person then to look into finding somebody to do some repair work on them, or would that be Brian, or?
Well, I'll work with Brian and see what we can come up with. I don't know of any local chair restoring businesses, but we'll look around. As far as folding chairs, right now, I don't think there are other meetings that are using those chairs, because I know that Mike, who's our daytime maintenance person, he moves the benches and the tables for every night meeting that's happening.
Okay.
So it's very unusual for another meeting.
Planning board uses them.
Are they still using them? Because
Those
they're
chairs, earlier this month, our chairs were missing from underneath our things, and they were around the table. I can't say specifically it was planning board, but it was around the table in the chambers area. So they're still being used by other people, other groups. So
yeah, I don't know what meeting that was, Tony, but I think it's unusual for that to happen, because I'm up there almost every day and I see that the benches are around the tables. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I just think it's unusual. I know that planning board used to use it every month, but now they have their tables out where the benches are. So.
Okay, so we'll look into some form of repair or other option or addition to those chairs rather than purchasing new replacements. Andrea?
And if anybody wants to bring in a cushion or anything, I wouldn't personally, I don't have problems with the uniformity or lack thereof if you want to be comfortable. So just want to make sure folks know that if you need a cushion or something.
As long as it doesn't make a noise every time you move, like.
No whoopee
Yeah.
cushions.
And solid colors only, no patterns.
I can look into seeing if we can find 9 cushions that would raise your body.
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay. It's certainly a less expensive option.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Sorry, I'm just writing my notes here. Thanks. See? Table's too high. I can't type well. All right. Let's see. The next item that I have is the mayor, I hope all of you saw the spreadsheet that he sent out. This is in reference to a proposed composting program. There is a little bit of money in the budget for it that I think is from a New York State grant. So that would just be a pass-through for an early aspect of it. But my concern is that even if this is going to be a voluntary program, it's a significant program. And I would much prefer to see an actual proposal from the mayor for the entirety of the program, so we would know what kind of future costs we might be looking at, what kind of process and practice would be involved. I don't think the budget is the right way to go about developing a new program without that kind of oversight. So, I'm fine with that first amount to go through, because from what I understand, if I'm right, John, that's only like $25,000 in this budget.
It's, I can give you the exact number here. But yes, it's.
what budget item is it underneath? So I can see.
Can you tell us what line it is in the budget book?
Yeah, so the revenue is in Department 8160, which is page 126, 28,596, that's the grant revenue.
You said
Yeah.
126?
126. And that covers 75% of the costs that are within the expenses in Department 8160 that have been added in for that.
So what line item again?
It is the last item on the page. 3389 New York State grant, 28,596.
Alrighty, I see the New York grant. And this is for 1 year, I'm assuming?
Yes,
All right. And that's gonna cover its cost this year?
75% of the cost.
So, because it's a grant, 75% of the cost that's involved, I'm fine with this particular piece going through. But before we approved anything else, I would be against this program if the mayor is only trying to send it through as a budget proposal. Before we go any further, spend any more money than this on it, particularly any taxpayers' money, I would want it to be significantly discussed and presented to us as a proposal, as a piece of legislation, as opposed to simply trying to put it through the budget process. Andrea?
I agree. I mean, I think this is something that, I hear mixed feelings, because this is something that has been in the works for a while, and, there's mixed feelings within the public, so I think this needs to be hashed out a little bit more in committee meetings and just talked about, because he started this, and it's then gonna snowball into next year, which could be a significant price. I just think, this is grant money, but then, we can save the 25%, and then I like your approach.
Okay.
Simple answer, I could have said.
Yeah,
Steve Chapman?
I agree. There are a lot of folks out there who are not happy with the whole idea of composting for whatever reasons, but there's a lot, I hear a lot of concerns and downright anger about being made to compost. So I think we want to make sure we do everything, vet it and do everything we have to do before we move forward with it.
This for this year that they're proposing is voluntary, but what I worry is that if it then starts, then, before we could talk about it, but I just wanted to,
Right. I'm sure that
hearing-
the program is going to be mandatory.
I'm hearing the same issues too from folks.
Yeah, and I say this as somebody who is absolutely in favor of composting. In my household, we compost everything that can be composted. Again, but the point here has to do with procedure. It has to do with transparency and being open about what we are thinking of doing with taxpayer money and with taxpayer time and property. Because if this requires any kind of buckets on people's houses, like the ones we've got now, that's a significant issue. Any other thoughts on that? Is anybody in favor of taking this out of the budget altogether?
You
This
mean
28,000.
the grant or just the 25%?
Well, if we take the 25% out, I'm assuming we wouldn't be getting the grant.
You're asking taking, you're saying get rid of the grant and the 25% that's within the budget.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not a voting member, but.
not spend the grant in other words.
John, tell them maybe we should clarify whether this is a grant that we've already, what the status of the grant is.
I believe we have not accepted it yet. We have not accepted it yet. That's the exact status the mayor doesn't provide. I don't believe we've accepted the grant. I think it's, my understanding is we apply year to year for the grant.
Yeah, the question for you, so let's say we said, forget it. And maybe next year we wanted to apply again, could they say, well, you already said no, so now we're not gonna.
I don't want to speak to that. I really don't. The right question should ask the mayor.
Well, the program, the amount that I've heard for the total program would be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, I mean, this amount of money is a small percentage of that total. So, I don't know how that might influence people one way or the other, but And I don't have exact figures either.
The mayor did mention to me that initiating this phase would not commit the city to future phases. He did make that clear.
Did everybody hear that? I just want to reiterate what John said. Committing to this phase would not commit the city to future phases.
And he also mentioned, depending on the success of this phase, could alter the strategy or, planning for the next phase, whatever that might be.
Do we know if we only use the grant money and we get rid of the 25%, if that would kill it, or it would just adjust the plan?
Well, there's a city match, so you just wouldn't have, right.
Wasn't sure if it was a match or if it was like a.
Yeah, no, it's 75%, so, right, you would effectively, I believe, kill the plan if you pulled out the revenue and the cost.
All right,
Yeah. Okay, I don't want to get into a whole discussion of this. John said we're going to, if we try this and measure the success, how do we measure the success of a voluntary program such as this? Maybe I'm just so unfamiliar with the process that I can't envision how we're going to measure that, yeah, this worked great or it didn't work.
I don't know all the metrics, but some of it could include, being able to measure the actual usage of the voluntary receptacles, right? There'd be a number of voluntary receptacles placed around the city, depending on what that level of interest is, but, I'm not an expert in organics, so.
And what department is managing all of this? Because, oh, sorry.
Michelle?
But so what I'm hearing everyone, what you're saying, like John and Rennie, is we could take it out of the budget, but then still pursue it separately, like legislatively, and get more, it's possibly community outreach and buy-in and put it through separately. It doesn't have to necessarily be part of the budget.
I'm not suggesting that, Michelle.
Not quite.
Okay.
What we're talking about here is two options. One is keep accept the grant and put a little bit of money in, that's the matching fund, and go through this first phase, which does not commit the city to any further steps toward a full composting program. But then, as I was saying for myself, before we did take any other steps, I would want to see a full proposal, for the full program before we before we put any more money toward it. The other option would be to take a stronger stand and say, we're so in favor of a full proposal that we don't even want to accept this first step. We don't want to accept this grant before we see a proposal for what may be a full thing. John was explaining that as I said, that just accepting this money and going this first phase doesn't commit us to anything else, and it might actually help determine what what any future program might look like. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Mike, Andrew.
So could we, and this may be what Michelle was getting towards, could we today say, no, we're not going to put it in the budget, but after we meet with the mayor a couple more times and we get a better explanation on things, bring it up in whatever committee this would fall under and say, let's say it is 25,000 or whatever, to say, okay, we're going to pass legislation to approve the 25% match for the grant in order to do it. Could we do that later on down the road?
Could we approve the grant later?
Well, the match.
No, because I think if we take the grant, the match is assumed in the acceptance of the grant.
Okay, so we can't push this down the road a little bit. We have to accept the grant now.
So we have to have the budget.
Oh, okay.
Do we know that for sure?
I'm not familiar with the timing of the application for the grant.
Mhm.
But obviously, to take the grant, to accept the grant, you have to approve the 25% match.
Correct.
Right.
I'm just curious as far as the
The
time.
deadline of.
Yeah, the deadline of that, because I'm in 100% agreement with Rennie that we do need a little bit more information on that But if that means the delay means we have to kill this now and then reevaluate it maybe next year and we'll have a little bit more information ahead of time, then I would go that route. But if we are allowed to kind of push this out a little bit, so we have those meetings, so we get a little bit more information about it, then I would just say, let's push it down until we can.
Andrea, then Tony,
So, actually.
then Carl.
The, first thing is just, I mean, I just don't love the transparency or the lack thereof of all of this. I mean, we almost didn't even talk about this because it wasn't really presented in a way that we knew what was happening until it took, right? And I also think for the public too, it would be nice for them to understand what's happening instead of this just being kind of, I feel like it's just being tossed in there. But, you know, grants do have deadlines and that would be a shame to lose that money to start it. So my second thing was, do you want me to call the mayor? And
That's why I was just gonna make a suggestion. Why don't we just call the mayor so we can answer these questions that we have before we go any farther with this.
You okay with that?
Sure. Carl, do you want to speak before we talk to the mayor?
I'll just say very quickly, I think it's great to talk to the mayor and it sort of addresses some of my issues. But when I found out about this, my wife did, it was kind of the most exciting bit of news about local government that I heard in a while. Am I frozen here?
Nope.
Okay, everybody was looking frozen, but maybe, whatever. So I do not want to kick the can down the road on this one. I think that gives a message also, and I think it is a wrong message. This is a very exciting initiative. It strikes me as very forward thinking. As a person who spent 30 years working in sustainability, I am thrilled to see things like this. And we are not facing the issue of mandatory behavior where we're trying to make people do it our way. It is totally voluntary. So this is one of those places where I think we should give the mayor the benefit of the doubt, and we will address that to a significant address. If we can talk to him now, we have to give him less benefit of the doubt because we'll get the answers. But I'm all for going in on this now and using this as a beta test to see how it should move forward forward in the future. Thanks.
Give me a second. Hey Steve, it's Andrea. We're sitting in a budget meeting talking about the composting plan. We have a quick question for you. So can I put you on speaker? Yeah, that would be easier. Oh. All right, great. We'll see you in a second. Bye. Steve is gonna zoom in.
It's a modern world.
If there's any questions on the solar project too, might be a good time if you have any, or if everything is answered, then not.
Do you hear what John's saying? There's also the issue with the solar plan, the various additions of solar panels on city buildings. There was some discussion we had in the budget meeting with, in regard to those, about what the savings would be when we would recoup those costs. The general idea was that it would be within about 3 years that we would make back those costs from the savings of energy for those particular, and those buildings were chosen largely because they're engineering ready for them. There are other city buildings that would not be capable at this moment of having an addition of solar panels. So again, if anybody has any questions about those are on the list of capital plan items at the bottom.
The mayor had emailed the council with the some of that information with the payback period, actually being 12 years.
I'm sorry.
But he provided information by property that's proposed to receive the solar panels.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I misspoke, or I was completely mistaken. The number is 12 years, not 3 years for recouping the costs.
Yeah, and an assessment based on current electricity prices, which are not right.
Do we know the life?
So it's a 12-year savings. That's what we're saying for the solar panels.
Well, in other words, the price of the panels will be paid off in 12 years by the energy savings. And that's given current electricity prices, John was adding. You know, if those prices go down, of course, then the time will be shorter and vice versa.
And realistically, like, much longer than that. Steve is the expert in solar panels, so if you have a question, that's what I mentioned. Ask it now when he jumps on.
It says 25 years.
Yeah.
We said the mayor is coming online.
Yeah, he said he was going to submit it.
I did send a link. He should be getting on any second now.
Okay.
The cat hit his computer. Tony, you got an elf in your house. It's early.
Yeah, that was Mother Santa.
A rumor's gets there.
So you're saying what you saw was 12 to 25 years for the meat paid off, or?
No, it was 12 years to get paid off, but the lifespan of the panels are 25 years, so basically we get 13 years of quote unquote savings.
Yeah, and that's estimate. I mean, maybe we should go longer, but.
If anybody is just now tuning in, we are waiting for the mayor to join us to answer a couple of questions about a potential composting program for the city.
Yeah, it's in fact, many solar panels installed as early as the 1980s are still working.
Yeah, well, and the technology could force the replacement quicker and, you know, more efficient.
All right, while we're waiting, anybody want to talk about the USA's chances against the Netherlands in the knockout stage of the World Cup?
I'm gonna go with 0.
What's happening?
World Cup
Sports.
I
Yeah,
used to watch sports when I had more than 30 seconds of free time today.
They've got a chance. They've got a good chance.
they got a good chance. All right, we got a discussion going
I
here.
like that.
Wednesday.
Saturday, 10 a.m.
They did what, 2 today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they may have lost 2 of their best players.
0, and there's a whole flag incident.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And that was interesting.
All right. We could also start talking about the Jets and the Giants. I have no idea about them, but other people might. You're wearing a Jets hoodie. Were their first victories a fluke or the real thing?
Oh, we are rolling, baby.
You can feel the New York Jets as their quarterback.
Rolling through Buffalo?
Things are rolling the wrong way.
I just texting him saying, these are, well, this is a quick question, so he's like cleaning his house right now.
Maybe he's looking for his budget book too.
He goes, we going to Buffalo, man.
You can't be eating.
Oh, yeah?
I'm a Bills fan, so.
I got my owl, and then I was the Scotty.
Bills fans,
I didn't
just
know, I
have
didn't know
them.
it was from straight here, so I had to have my bag, like, the bag I need, and then he had my tea and.
Are they playing the Jets? you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, in Buffalo, okay. That's
I wanna
so
go.
cool.
trying to be very discreet.
Yeah.
He had to run,
It's fine.
he's coming in.
It's nice on TV. Yeah, just warm.
Yeah. What'd they get it? 77 inches.
Are they still doing?
Orchard Park, yeah.
Buffalo?
Yeah.
8 for, I think, all right.
Are you guys Buffalo fans?
I am,
My brother has played for 2
Just so you know, it's, I pressed the wrong link, so that's on me. He's logging in now.
Steve is waiting for the run. Where's everybody? They invite me and then they don't show up.
Oh, the one from Washington?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Tyler, yeah.
Yeah, he's a captain.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great.
All right, here we go. We get the mayor is connecting to audio, check. All right. Waiting for him to unmute. And there he is.
All right. So I'm sorry the time went backwards and it was saying you're trying to log into public safety. Not tonight.
All right. Well, we are looking at the 28,000 and change that's in the current budget relating to the composting plan. And so our first concern is that we would like to see, before it went any further than that, a proposal for the plan. You sent out a spreadsheet that was helpful, but that's not the same thing as a proposal. A number of us have been getting communications from constituents, residents who are really concerned about any possible program. So that's why we would like to be able to see something so we can have a more open discussion about it. The kind of smaller question here has to do with whether or not to keep that $28,000 in the budget, because we're not sure if the grant has actually been applied for yet. And so there's some discussion about whether to go ahead with, with the $28,000 and change, and our match would cover, or to take that out of the budget in order to do some more discussion about the proposal. Have I got that right, everybody?
Basically, when's the due date?
Yeah, when's the due date? When does the when does the grant turn into a pumpkin?
Sure. So the grant is a reimbursable grant, and it's a grant that we apply for every year. And it's a kind of one of the grant programs that DEC has that as long as you have eligible expenses, you're able to qualify and then get reimbursed. And so, if the council chooses not to move forward with the composting program, we just won't apply for the grant and we won't be able to get the grant funds. If the council allows us to spend the money, we'll then be able to apply for the grant and get reimbursed for up to 50% of the what we spend on the program. And I think as for program details, the spreadsheet that I sent does have the financial details, but this first phase of the program is pretty straightforward. As it says in the spreadsheet, we would place compost bins at every city facility. We would place then compost bins at our transfer station and then also at 12 locations in our parks and in our neighborhoods that are kind of publicly owned. And DPW would pick them up on a weekly basis. And so that's all in the plan. I wouldn't have anything else to really provide any further details because that's what we plan on doing. It's pretty straightforward. Not this first phase of what we're proposing, does not have any curbside pickup. This is just a voluntary drop-off program that we would like to get started to be able to at least provide some opportunities for our residents to be able to compost. And as you saw in the spreadsheet, even this very small program, we believe has the ability to, save about 80 tons, I think it was, of trash from going to the landfill out in Seneca Falls, New York. And so that there's at $110 a ton, there's already a cost savings there to the city, kind of in addition to the grant program itself, which would allow us to, buy a trailer and buy the totes that we need, to do the program and help reimburse for some of the expenses like gas and things like that. And so, yeah, we at this point, the grant again is something that if we spend the money, we can get reimbursed. But if we don't spend the money, it's not one of those things where you necessarily have to it's not necessarily a competitive program that we would normally apply for, like you're familiar with the CFAs. These municipal solid waste reduction grants, we get and have gotten every year for education and when we send out the mailers and when we do those types of things, we already have a grant that we continually apply for. This would just kind of be an additional new program kind of under that same concept.
Great. Tony Davis and Andrew Shaw.
Thanks for coming on, Mayor. For one, so this wouldn't be this wouldn't be like another thing that residents on a volunteer basis would have to put out in on their street, on their corner, they'd be picked up?
Yeah, no. So this is just you would bring, if you want to compost, and you don't have like your own backyard composting or something like that, and you would bring it to us. So you would either bring it to one of our public facilities, like that we set up one of these kind of compost collection stations, or you can bring it to our transfer station when it's open on Fridays and Saturdays. And so, yeah, at this point, we're not proposing in this first phase to do curbside pickup, but in the future, we hope to do curbside pickup, but that too would also be voluntary. If someone wants a bin, they could request one and we could drop one off at their house and they could compost with it. But at this point, that's not being requested now. And at no point do we foresee any mandatory composting programs in the city. I think at some point the state is going to mandate that we do, but at this point, we're not proposing that.
So would this be something that you would apply every year? That was one of the questions that came up before you came on, is that if we do it this year, is it something, it's not automatic that it's going to be done next year. It would still have to be put in the budget and have to be voted on.
Yeah, no. Once we get this program up and running this first year with the expenses of buying a trailer and buying the compost bins, this is just going to be a part of what DPW is doing. We're providing composting service because we're going to save on tipping fees, because we're currently sending food waste, 250 miles, round trip, and spending $110 a ton versus bringing this waste to UCRA, which is just down the road, and only paying $20 a ton. The $90 per ton saving. And
so about $9,000, it says right now in the proposal, in tipping fees saving.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Andrew Shaw?
I think some of my questions are already answered. So the dumping that's going to be at UCRA?
Yes. Yep.
All right, they have facility to get this.
They do. We've been working very closely with them. They already have they have a permit that they can process up to 5,000 tons of compost at their facility. So they're excited and interested. They already have a lot of compost that comes in from larger institutions, because it already is mandatory here in Ulster County for large food waste providers, including grocery stores and things like that. And starting in January, even large restaurants are going to be required to compost. And so, diners and places like Dysing's and others are going to be required to start composting in January already. So we, at this point, UCRA is prepared and ready to take, any, municipal compost that we can get out to them.
All right, and my other question, you may have answered it already, but kind of had to do with the DPW cost of this. I know you said that it would reduce the tipping fees, but it's still, person power to go out and empty these bins once a week. So was that considered in this budget? Because I don't believe they have new staff. So is there any overtime or anything that they will need for this extra workload?
No, after speaking with DPW staff, the amount that we would be picking up is relatively small in their workload, and would be available for them on Fridays when it's kind of their off day, to be able to pick up at our city facilities. But for instance, they're already picking this stuff up anyway. It's not like we're carting in waste from outside the city. So if it's less that they have to pick up on a Tuesday, they'll just have to pick up a little bit more on a Friday, but it's still the same amount of waste. Same thing with city buildings that are going to have composting in them. They're going to be able to just have compost bins instead of trash bins, right? When they are there'll be less trash pickups and there'll be more compost pickups, but it'll still be the same same amount of material being picked up.
All right, and then my third and probably final question. So this is kind of a pilot year to see how it goes. So if this is going to expand on into 2024, I guess this isn't really so much a question as a request, but we do hear a lot from constituents. We want to make sure that they understand what's going on if this does become even bigger. So I guess my request is just, if that happens for 2024, if you could, we could do this in a different way versus just having it in the budget. And we almost didn't even notice that it existed except that you addressed it in your budget address and that we remembered it. So I guess it's just more of a maybe question, can you do that, to just a request on, can you do that?
I mean, for us, the day-to-day operations of the city, of what we do, is all in the budget, right? I mean, I think that's how we operate as a city, to be able to kind of get our programs and initiatives done. We keep the council informed as best we can about kind of the new initiatives, so that when people call and have questions, we will definitely let the council know, so that you all can be informed, to be able to help promote and educate the different programs that we roll out to our folks. But the budget is really whenever there are new expenses. We have staff every day that create new programs and roll out new programs and initiatives that may not necessarily cost money, that we try to, again, educate you all about, so that what's going on and with new initiatives and new programs. And the same thing, though, that when things have a cost to them, we really feel like the budget is the place for them to go. And that's why we wanted to make sure that composting was something that you guys were aware of. And as it's a big part of our plan that the council adopted in terms of our climate action plan for 2030. And being able to reduce our solid waste here in the city, I know, is something that the council has wanted to do in the past. But yeah, we'll definitely try to continue to keep the public updated as we roll out more programs and more initiatives to keep our city moving in the right direction.
Mike Olivieri?
Thank you very much, Mayor. So I know the basis of composting, but not the ins and outs of it. So I just looked up real quick on something, the benefits and drawbacks. You've addressed the majority of the drawbacks, but the one that is of great concern is it says environmental issues such as odors and dust. So in regards to the odor aspect of things, like how is that?
Yeah, so we're not making the compost ourselves, and that's really where the odor comes. If you don't have your piles be kind of mixed appropriately in the actual creation of the compost, and I know that the town of Ulster has had issues with UCRA in the past when the piles weren't managed properly. They've got that all under control now, and it seems like the odor issues out by the Kingston-Rhinecliffe Bridge have been greatly reduced. But for us, the waste is only going to be, in our kind of totes for a week. It'll be closed, they'll have lids, and they'll get washed or be in bags, that compostable bags, at these facilities that we have them in. And so there won't be any odor issues on our end in terms of collection. It's all about when it's being made, is when you sometimes can get the odor issues when it's sitting for long periods of time. But none of this will be sitting in our facilities for a long period of time. Our plan right now is for weekly pickup.
Thank you.
Yep.
So thank you, Mary Noble, for coming out tonight and having to put your clothes back on. I appreciate everything that you told us here, because this is sounds like a really wonderful program in a lot of ways. And I hear what you're saying about keeping the council informed, but the reason we're talking to you right now is because we were not informed. We knew nothing about this, and having it in the budget, is sure, that's about how we get paid, how we talk about how things get paid. But something like this is, it's the kind of thing that really you need a lot of public education on. So that's why we're asking for a more proper proposal. If you decide to expand this, if after looking at this initial program, you think it's worthy of being expanded, we'd like to have a bigger discussion about it with the public. So that's why we're asking for a more proper proposal if there is a decision on your part to expand the program in the future.
And I would just say that, I think speaking about it during our budget address, which I know not all of you could attend, but we did spend time talking about it specifically there. And I know, I think you may be the liaison to our Conservation Advisory Council. I'm not sure how many I don't know who is maybe nowadays on the council, but I think at some point you may have been with that or Climate Smart Kingston. But both of our committees, have talked a lot about composting and have gotten a lot of public feedback about this. And, we will continue to, gather feedback about this. But what we're hearing from the public is, hey, we should have been doing composting a long time ago. And, we're happy that we're getting this program rolled out in a way that's going to, I think, benefit the city. But we'll, again, I just really encourage any council members that are interested in this matter of, some of our sustainability initiatives to, get engaged, and feel free to reach out. And I'd love to meet with any of you if you have any questions or concerns going forward.
Tony Davis?
Mayor, before you go again, Rennie, I know you put it out there. I don't want the mayor to get off and then we have to call him to come back. And in regard to the solar panels, that's on the capital plan. I know, before he goes, did anybody have any questions about that? And it was discussed, and Mayor, before you got on, that it would be like a 12 years before it was like pays off or evens out. You can speak about that?
Sure, yeah. So our solar capital plan, similar to the work that we just did on the Andy Murphy Neighborhood Center, the payback period on solar projects is based on about 11 cents a kilowatt hour, which is what we're going to be paying for electricity next year, is about 12 years. Solar panels work at this point, have a warranty of between 25 and 30 years. So after the 12-year mark, we would be basically getting free electricity for the next 20 years, 15 to 20 years. And we feel like, as I mentioned, we also have the opportunity to get that further tax credit, which will further reduce those costs. And then obviously we're kind of locking in our, utility rates at that relatively low cost, which I think is good, because at this point we all know that utility rates are only going to rise in the future and not stay even stagnant at 11 cents. And so we're excited about that. And we've identified 4 buildings. There are many more that we think could use solar, but there are some more structural issues and roofing issues that we'll need to look into further to get a better understanding of where they're at before we can do solar on those buildings. But this is at least the first batch of buildings that we think are prepared and ready, and we think will save us all money in the future in terms of our energy costs.
All right, any other questions relating to those? All right then, thank you, Mayor Noble, we appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, any further discussion then on the $28,000 and change in the budget? Now that we have a clear idea about what's involved in the program.
Well, I think it's just deciding if you want to do it this way or do it through the outside of the budget, right? I mean, 'cause it doesn't, the grant money is not going to disappear, but you did answer a lot of the questions, so get the constituents.
Personally, I think I'm still in favor of pushing this back a little bit, just so we can get more input from the general public and just to educate them a little more. So if they look at this and you're just saying, oh, the city just approved this composting thing, am I gonna have to be a part of it, this, that, and the other. I think just giving it a little more time. And from what I gathered, what the mayor was saying, it's really not gonna be like, a steadfast, hard in the sand deadline, we have to do this.
All right, so one suggestion in favor of taking this out of the budget. Other opinions? Michelle Hirsch?
I'm good with leaving it in. I think it's really important. I think a lot of our community is ideally in favor of reducing methane in, our landfills and greenhouse gases in our environment. And by keeping it in, we're keeping it in the budget, we're keeping in line with the other state rollouts and the restaurants and the timelines. So I'm in favor of it. Thank you.
All right, Carl Frankel?
I'm in favor of it too. food waste is the largest single cause of climate change. This is really important on a global level as well as personal. And since it's totally voluntary, I absolutely strongly in favor of keeping it in the budget for all those reasons. Thank you.
All right. Barbara Hill?
Yeah, ditto on the past two speakers and all of you. I think it's yeah, it's a no-brainer. Our city's keeping up with such, all these progressive moves or just reasonable moves to address the climate, crisis. So this is, for me, a no-brainer, and I'm so grateful for the legwork that's gone into it. So.
Anthony Davis?
Again, right now, I'm in favor unless something just more totally. And the mayor stated in his proposal in here, it's going to save us like almost $9,000. It's going to save the city almost $9,000 in tipping fees, and as a voluntary basis, so it's not being forced down anybody to do it at this point. And we're getting prepared, and if the state is going that way, and now we'll have some of the equipment, we'll have many people be educated on what you have to do. And right now, what it's looking at with the grant that we have, 75%, it's costing the city, what, $1,000, and the net cost to implement this. And as you said, as the other three have said, we're looking at the future here, and we're trying to change, and improve the climate. And this is one way. This is another way, and going in the right direction. So I'm going to be in favor of it. That is in the budget anyway. So I'll be in favor of leaving it in
And kind of cutting against a little bit what the mayor said. I think people need to understand this, and I don't think they've done a good job. He's got a whole communications department, and we just approved a mailer, so maybe this would be the mailer to send this out to let folks know exactly what is involved in composting, why it's important, why it's valuable, and how the city will be saving money. I think those are all great points for selling the program, even at this basic voluntary level. So, anybody else? Andrea?
Well, I was just gonna, because it's just the finance committee voting on any changes today, so I just wanted to make sure folks were aware of that. So I don't know if you want to check in with the finance committee members to see how they feel, if you want to just take a straw poll
We can do that.
or wait until the end.
Well, I think we've been going along. I'd rather go ahead and fix it or figure it out now. So members of the Finance Committee, all those who would be in favor of leaving it in the budget as it is. All those opposed? Michael, you're on an island.
That's great. Yeah.
All right, so we'll leave it in this way, but I do want to reemphasize that any further development of a proposal of this, to expand this program in any way, shape, or form, I'd like to see it in the form of a proposal, not simply some discussion in a speech somewhere and a not clear budget item. All right, we can move on then. We are now back to the discussion about the pay for the Director of Community Development. And I believe that's the last item, unless anybody has anything else they want to bring up. Andrew Schatz?
Didn't you mention the signs?
Where did they go? They're supposed to
As
be.
part of the capital, to add that in. So I did get information from some of the department heads, which I really do know that you, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So I reached out to DPW, KPD, and engineering too, and Ed did spend a lot of work on this on Monday for us. It's a rough estimate because it was quite last minute ask, but I'm just taking time while John pulls up the email.
Well, no,
But I think it's like 5,000 each. Yeah, but they seem to be in favor of it. Chief Timsey, came back today, saying, they seem to be in favor of it. I think it had to be a longer, obviously, conversation on where they would go, what we exactly want, how many we want to purchase, but since it's going on in the capital, or potentially going in the capital plan, you know, we could get the ball rolling with that, and then there's a lot of other things that we'll have to iron out. And with those departments in mind.
Right. So the basic issue here we're talking about is purchasing 10 mobile solar-powered traffic speed meter signs so that we could put them in places where we get specific complaints. The idea, so some of the questions that came up, to reiterate what Andrew was saying, has to do with who would have the actual responsibility for maintenance of them. There might be an issue too of where to store them if they're not all in particular use at a moment, so on and so forth. I think those things can pretty easily be ironed out. So as far as I'm concerned, the only issue is how much money to put in the capital plan to potentially cover purchase for these. And the estimate we got from Ed Norman was prices that range from $3,000 to $5,000. So each, so I think if we put in $5,000, that would likely cover the year's worth of purchase as well as maintenance and so forth. Barbara Hill.
Sorry, my connection's been unstable. And I think earlier I spoke about the signs when you were all discussing the overtime pay. So I apologize. I thought so. Yeah, I just want to say I'm highly, a big fan of these signs and much needed. So, but I want to go back to Rennie. You were, I raised my hand before. You were pricing it out better. So I want to understand better what you're saying about, is it just 5,000 to store the units, or how much each are they? I didn't get it correctly.
The upper range, Ed Norman saw prices ranging from $3,000 to $5,000 per unit.
Per unit, okay.
So my suggestion was if we go with that upper number of 50,000 total, that most likely, we would certainly be able to purchase these, but likely we would, especially if we were buying, a number of them all at once, we'd probably get a cut, a price on a better price per unit. So I'm thinking that would largely cover some of the other questions of maintenance and so forth. But those things we might have to deal with in terms of adding some money for contingency over the course of the year. So, Andrea, then Tony.
Go, Tony.
Oh, Tony.
I couldn't hear you guys because, again, remember, we speak towards the camera, TV, then we can hear you. What are these signs? What are these signs? I'm not sure if I was at that meeting when it was discussed.
Oh, so have you been on Lucas Avenue where there's a sign that it flashes what your speed is? And if you go to the mouse, it says slow down, or if you're going the right business, thank you, whatever, there's different ones. So what we're talking about doing is buying 10 of these, but they would be mobile ones, so that we could move them to places where people are complaining about speeding, or where we get data that there is speeding going on or some kind of trouble. And, because we could do permanent ones, but then you're stuck with where you place them. So the advantage of these would certainly be to get a lot of feedback, no pun intended, on how successful they are, what kind of response people give to them, and questions of who would maintain them and place them.
So we're saying we're going to purchase 10 of these, that we're not going to leave them permanently there. So now that's an extra cost of DPW,
right,
having to take these signs and locate them in different areas. So that means we, as aldermen, people would have to call, I'm assuming the president, the chair, president, and say, oh, can we have this thing put in XYZ in my ward? Then we have to wait because DPW is not going to do that right away. How long are they going to be up on these poles to get the data? And then somebody's going to say, can I have one in my area? Because we're not putting them permanently there. So we're going to be constantly moving these around. Is that what we're saying?
Well, no, not necessarily. And actually, when the chief came back, he actually recommended stationary ones. And I can't remember what Ed and Ryan, if they've had a conversation on it. I mean, I think all of this stuff needs to be talked about, because you're right, if we're moving them constantly, that's too much work. We don't have the person power to do that. So that would have to be something that we think about, so I think it's just ironing out the details, going to the higher range of them, because I don't know if it's set that we want them to be mobile. I don't know if they collect data. I don't know if they all do.
They can.
They can, all right, and then some of them could be solar powered, some of them are not. So then it would be an electricity expense. So there's a bunch of things that still need to be discussed. It's just more of like, you make the purchase and then, or at least set aside the money to do that. And probably go to maybe talk about this in public safety one time, and get DPW and KPD in there to kind of iron all this stuff out.
And the city engineer as well.
Yeah, John.
So the idea would be to put in $50,000 in the capital plan as a marker, so that we've got the money to spend. We can do some more research. We don't have to spend it right off the bat, right? So we can get some, it might come back after we talk to everybody, we get 5 permanent ones and 5 mobile ones, and but I think the crucial thing is, especially when we're talking about decreasing the speed limit to 25, we want to be ready to go with something like this, so that it's another aspect of enforcement. As well as, even if we don't change the speed limit, this is one of the main things that we hear from our constituents is people speeding, and there are very particular roads where people do it.
Yeah.
So, and all the studies that the engineer talked to us about and that we've looked at before say that these are actually very effective ways of getting people to slow down. So.
Okay. So we're gonna talk about putting this into the capital plan right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Steve, did you want to say something?
Actually, I think my question got answered, but I'm on Lucas Avenue every day. There's 3 between Kingston and Cottage Hill. And it slows me down every time. It slows everybody down. I think this is one of the most effective traffic control devices there are. For whatever you think, there's somebody gonna come out and shoot you if you don't slow down in time. I think they're very effective. I would like to put. Do what?
How fast are you going?
You never know. And then all on Lucas Avenue, the speed limit has changed pretty frequently. So it's a perfect spot for them, because sometimes it goes from 40 to 45 to 50 and then back down again, for a small stretch. So they're great reminders. I would like to put a priority on solar power if we can.
Yeah. Well, even stationary ones can be solar powered.
Yeah, so I think all of those are solar powered.
I think so.
I think they all have a solar power.
Yeah. All right, so are we all good then with putting in $50,000 into the capital plan for this purchase and further research?
Yes.
Okay, good. Did you add that in, John? All right, sorry, thank you for reminding me of that. I had it in my list. I don't know how it fell out, but anyway. All right, now, if I'm correct, we can move to the discussion of the request for an increase in pay by the Director of Community Development.
Hey, Barbara, can you mute yourself when you're not talking? Because there's some feedback coming from you.
Yep.
Thank you. And also, are we going into executive session?
Yeah, I think so, because nobody said they had anything else to discuss, and that's the last item that I have, at least.
I sent you Zoom folks, council folks, the information to call in for a conference call. You should have gotten that in a text from me.
So we're leaving here. We're leaving out.
Is there been a motion?
I was gonna say there needs to be a motion.
Well, let's be motion first. Hold on a second. We just want to make sure everybody got the motion from Tony Davis to go into executive session to discuss personnel.
Second.
By a bunch of people, by Michelle Hirsch. All right, good. So we'll see everybody, or rather we'll hear everybody here in just a minute.
I have to jump off, so don't expect me, right? Don't wait.
Good. All right,
Thank
Barbara.
you. Good job.
Wait, I have to do two things at once.
Welcome, and thank you for choosing free conference calls.
I know.
Yeah. All right, so we have one more potential change to discuss. The outcome of our discussion in regard to the salary of the Director of Community Development is to leave it as is proposed in the current budget with no alteration. And so one more item to discuss, and then we will go through the committee reports for the specific changes that we have discussed tonight.
The last item is, Parks and Rec Department reached out to me. They received a $20,000 grant from the Novo Foundation for, transportation for their programs. That would be a zero impact. There will be a revenue and expense. We increase by $20,000. The council is amenable to that. We can put that change.
We didn't talk about that?
She mentioned it,
She may have mentioned it, but we may have talked about it. It's like, you know.
but they also didn't have the grant yet.
The money has been received.
Okay,
So I would recommend making a change.
all right. Good.
Okay.
But that'll be just the committee report.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we would just do a committee report.
all right.
Oh, wait. We can time it. Just-
Well, that's why you're uncomfortable sitting on those seats, because you got that humongous wallet in your back pocket.
I know, Jesus, I'm like, look at that thing.
Are you still carrying like your Boy Scout membership card in there?
That's the George Costanza one.
I just texted Tony.
That's at least a place. The other side is even worse. Look at it. Jeez.
Oh, my
That's
God. Like George Costanza.
I say with yours.
Look, jump like this down.
You can't throw anything away.
Look at this. That's Mr. Streamline.
Oh, my God. Do you deal with money or
I'm
something?
kind of like you, look at,
They're
mine's like yours. Yeah. Mine's like yours.
All yours is, well,
Not quite as.
My travel wallet.
not like
Looks
this.
at that.
Yeah, and that's what I've kind of got.
That's on here, too.
This.
Yes.
Well, this has my insurance card and stuff like that. I'm just hoping I don't have to go to Dr. Johnson. Yeah, mandatory cards. I have to have it all times. Carry. So he said he was going
You don't want to get pulled over by the state police without it, right?
I have to carry these two at all times.
Are they both for that?
Well, this is showing that I'm allowed to, and this is showing what I have.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So if one, like, if they were like, okay, let me see, and if it didn't match any of them, right to jail.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Tony,
Tony, okay. All right.
Well, we've got 4 people. If he doesn't come back. So. There he is.
here.
All right, Tony. There's one more, we just, the last item that wasn't on the list was just approving, taking in some money for Parks and Rec from a Novo grant, putting that in the budget.
And in the future, if we're going to go into executive session, you have to do, whoever the chair is for it has to do another way. I can't see you, you guys can't see me in regard to who's talking, who's raised their hand, et cetera, et cetera. So it's got to be a better way than to say somebody else is talking. So I need, you need to go around the table, whoever's the chair, and say each person's name. Do you have something to say?
Okay, that's a good
Right.
idea. Yeah. Will do. I like that idea.
Do you want me to summarize, where we're at dollar wise and with the straw poll that you've taken it on each of the items?
Sure.
So, where we're at, so far we have, potentially added 34,451 in personnel expenditures through, the addition of $25,000 of overtime, in police budget, and adding a page, and that's including any benefits, Social Security and retirement costs for, those positions, the retirement costs being on a police position. That's 34,451. We are, in terms of other changes, we have discussed a $7,000 add back into the communications community engagement budget for contracted services. And we've talked about adding in $20,000. We just discussed $20,000 in revenue and expense, offsetting expense for Parks and Rec for a grant, no impact there. We've also talked about adding $50,000 into capital plan for the speed signs. That would allow, that would provide funding for further definition of what that exact plan is, but it would provide the bonding availability for that equipment. So the total impact of those changes and the changes to the prorated amounts from the mayor's budget is $67,430. If the council approved the changes they've discussed, the $67,430, the question is, how do you want to fund that? The council could fund it through increasing the appropriation of fund balance, reducing other expenditures, contingency, there's choices there. The simplest one would be to, change appropriation of fund balance, but there's other options available. Council so chooses.
It would be a really small percentage of the fund balance, right?
$67,000, that's.
Yeah. So that would be my preference. Do people have other ideas here? Everybody okay with that approach? Okay, that's what we'll do then.
Okay. So shall I start writing up committee reports for each of the changes?
Yep.
And then we'll get into the package.
Are we going to be doing the homestead, non-homestead
Yes.
night too? Okay. All right. Well, you haven't had fun yet.
Yeah.
All right, for anybody who is watching or is looking at this on tape, we are now in the process of writing up committee reports for each of the changes that we've discussed. These will make the adjustments we're talking about. These will add them into the budget. And then we will also have a discussion about the any adjustment to the homestead, non-homestead rates, as well as voting on the budget as a whole after the changes are made. And if anybody has a ukulele, this would be the time to pull it out. Do you have a ukulele carry license?
You never know.
People should actually. Sometimes people who like get violent over a banjo. So,
Violent on the banjo, is that what you said?
yeah. They want to just tear the banjo player to pieces. So the first, you got the P in there.
It's a little tiny thing.
Thinking the two.
That's why I type everything.
Okay, yeah, looks like you forgot to put it in, you're like, stuck it in there. Okay, all right. So the first committee report from the comptroller here is increase expenditures in the proposed 2023 general fund budget by $538 to provide funding for a common council page. Financial impact, $538. Do we have a motion to discuss? Michael Olivieri, second by Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and then for all of these, Michelle and Tony, I've got your permission to sign for you.
Yes.
Great, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Second one, with a big P, is increase expenditures in the proposed 2023 general fund budget to provide funding for police overtime. After we include the various related benefits, the cost will be $33,913. Motion to discuss. Steve Shabbat, second by Michael Olivieri. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. We haven't hardly got started.
Need a writing breakdown.
I write really hard, so.
I wrote my contracts out there. Oh, that's because we're all about like straight names, like it's not like. But they come here. Oh.
Seek her wisdom.
Yeah, I should do that.
All right. The next report, increase expenditures in the proposed 2023 general fund budget to provide funding for mailers and translation services, communications department. The estimated financial impact, $7,000. Motion to discuss. Steve Shabbat, second by Michael Olivieri. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Sorry. I put the impact draw.
Can I just put a minus?
Yeah, that's fine.
There are no invoices.
Well, I'm trying to
We do.
read it on study. Yeah.
All right, the next. Yesterday. Next, report here, increase revenues and expenses in the proposed 2023 general fund budget to provide funding for a grant received by Parks and Recreation from the Novo Fund. This will add $20,000 in revenue.
20,000 expense.
For $20,000 expense, increase revenue, increase expense. All right, do we have a motion to discuss? Steve Shabbat, second by Michael Livieri. Any discussion? All in favor then? Is there no discussion? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. The next report, approve the city's 2023 general fund budget as amended with total expenditures of. John, what is? Oh, that's, you didn't put that period in there. That's 50 million, right?
50,156,158.
Okay, total expenditures of $50,156,158. Do you have a motion to discuss? Michael Livieri, second by Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously. The next report is approve the city's 2023 amount to be raised by taxes totaling $17,624,961, including a tax levy in the amount of $17,940. We have a motion to discuss. Steve Shabbat, second by Michael Livieri. Any discussion? What's that?
I was just talking, sorry.
So, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously. And the next report is approve the city's 2023 sewer fund budget with total expenditures of $5,558,322. Motion to discuss. Michael Livieri, second by Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? None. The report passes unanimously. Next item, approve the city's 2023 sewer rate of $6.82 per unit. We have a motion to discuss. Michael Livieri, second by Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. It's like a dam broke.
This is the answer for it. This is committee report and then the support.
Okay. Is this the last item then?
Capital plan would be the last item.
Okay. All right, two more items. This one is regarding the homestead, non-homestead tax. This calls to authorize moving the base proportion ratio to 55.42124 homestead, 44.578676 non-homestead for the 2023 tax year. Dan, you want to tell us what that actual percentage is and why you think that's the right one?
So each year we have to make a calculation of what the local adjustments to the adjusted base proportion are. This is in accordance with property tax law 1903, which the city adopted early in the 1990s after revaluation. And the schedule that is determined is showing the allowable possible tax shares which can be adopted. The mayor's budget proposes a ratio that is similar to what it was last year. Just to give you an example of what these local adjustments do. Right now, the homestead class, which is 1, 2, 3 families in residential vacant land, is just over 68% of the assessment roll. Last year, this council adopted a ratio that made the homestead class responsible for just under 55% of tax shares. So what the local adjustments to local base proportion does, it does shift tax burden from one class to the other class being non-homestead. It does shift burden from the homestead class to the non-homestead class. Okay, and one of the possible tax shares, which allowable tax shares was selected by the mayor, which is a 25% shift, which puts us in line with where we have been going over the past 10 years from now, is to try to, take those class shares and move them from that homestead class. From that homestead class, from the non-homestead class back onto the class. This does conform with that informal practice that council and the mayor have worked towards, and that allows for more equitable distribution that is allowed.
And so, didn't we do 20% last year?
Off the top of my head, I don't know if it was 20 or 25.
Not that it matters hugely, but.
Yeah, last year, like I said, the class shares were 54.78 homestead. And this year the proposal is 55.42.
Yeah.
The only other, the next allowable, the downward 20% was 54.55, and the 30% shift was 56.28.
And so what does this do, in essence, to the basic homeowner in terms of their taxes?
I think John has that model. I don't have that, and I think when he comes back, he should have that available for you.
Okay.
He just wants to get some good credit.
Okay.
What was those figures again? I can't hear you guys. The proposed figures?
Yeah, the proposal is to go with a 25%. And so that would move the homestead rate from 54 point something from last year to 55.4% this year. And it would correlatively shift the non-homestead as well.
And Tony, that what it does to the rate, John will be able to
All right,
tell you that.
thank you.
Yes, I'm sorry, we're just waiting for John to come back.
And as you know, Tony, that this that has been the what we've seen, the historical practice of the mayor and the common council is to very slowly, make these small shifts. Because if not, if we made no shifts at all, the homestead class share would drop to 51.09. And that is a reflection of what is happening to the assessment roll and in following real property tax on 1903. So, and that was, if you remember way back when, why we made these adjustments, because we kept falling backwards. And what this does is allows us to stay in the class shares that have been consistent to where we've been before.
It's a.
We've got his phone.
Exactly.
We can hold that hostage.
I heard some tires squealing out front.
Well, maybe he's really gone then.
If you look downstairs, you probably won't think about it.
Those keepers leader convicted of sedition. Oh, huh. 3 other defendants were found not guilty.
See a lawsuit against Kraft macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, oh my God.
No.
What, did they have
They're
face?
suing for like $5 million too.
Because of what? It's the instant,
Because
the instant.
the instant, it didn't, the packaging says it takes 3.5 minutes. And it takes longer than that.
Like four.
So they're suing.
There you go.
What do they say? Time is money?
That's a lot of money for a little bit of time. We had a question, which is, so with this proposed alteration to the ratio, what does that mean to your basic homeowner?
What that means is, let's get into the tax rate calculation. As of right now, the tax rates will drop from $8.82 down to $8.81 for homeowners. Non-homesteads will drop from $14.14 down to $13.91. So the tax rates are dropping 0.11% for homeowners, 1.65% for, when I say homeowners, for homesteads, and 1.65% for non-homesteads.
Okay.
What was those rates again?
The rates are, the 23 tax rates for homesteads would decrease by 0.11% from $8.82 to $8.81. The non-homestead rate would drop 1.65% from $14.14 down to $13.91.
Thank you.
Well,
And then, is there an ideal ratio here, Dan, between homestead and non-homestead?
No, I mean, I think that, if you look. If you look at the allowable tax shares, right? Look at the allowable tax shares, which is right here.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that can be chosen. An ideal is, up to you and the mayor, what is ideal? We're in 1903, we can't get out of it without a revaluation. And even if you shifted to 100% this year, we would still be back here next year making adjustments. I think what the mayor's proposed, obviously, with Tony's question, it looks like it's quite prudent. It affects the rates least. We don't fall backwards into the hole of where we were 10 years ago doing studies on, is this affecting our commercial tax? Is this affecting our commercial real estate values, our commercial tax base? There, in my opinion, it appears to be by making these adjustments and staying on top of it, things are much clearer, things are much more steady, much more accurate.
And this is the smallest increment we can make and still have the direction that we're headed. Yeah. The 20% adjustment would go backwards.
Yep.
Great. Because that's what I thought last year we did 20%.
We've done 20 for a number of years in a row. But those shifts allowed us to generally move forward. This year, 20% would move us backward.
And in the worksheet, there are different factors that are going to be causing the shift to be pushed one way or another. And those are just out of our control. What is in control is those allowable tax shares.
Okay.
To select.
All right. Thank you for that. Any other questions? All right, then I'll take motion to discuss. Mike Olivieri, second by Steve Shabbat. Any discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Nope. So the motion passes unanimously. Last item is our capital plan, which reads approved bonding totaling $3,535,000 for the city's 2023 capital plan as per attached.
Speed signs? Yeah. Both under police department. Speed signs are related to 3,000.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and then we, based on our meeting with Public Works, they increased the price of the Packers.
Okay.
We talked about. So
Good. All right.
Green.
Okay. Stay away from talking about that. They got in trouble.
Oh.
All right. All right. Any questions then about the capital plan? Hearing none, then Tony, you've got a question? Yes.
What was the total?
$3,535,000.
$530?
535,000.
535.
All right.
All right. Then a motion to discuss. Steve Shabbat, second by Mike Olivieri. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Anything else, John?
that's it.
You're not going to surprise us with something else?
I can if you want. I think we're okay. I think we're good job.
All right, we got a motion to adjourn, second. Everybody in favor? Aye, all right. Everybody, thank you for hanging in there. It is now 9:40 and we